Hello, and great to have you join us here on this Emirates flight today. This is the LitFest channel, where we get an opportunity to interview a selection of the many authors and writers who attended the Emirates Festival of Literature earlier in the year. Right now, you're in for a real treat, as our next guest is only the man behind the acclaimed book and TV series Killing Eve, the man who created the deadly Russian assassin Villanelle. Luke Jennings, welcome to Emirates, welcome to Dubai. Well, Luke Jennings, welcome to Dubai, welcome to Emirates.
Thank you very much.
Now, Killing Eve with the characters Villanelle and Eve Polastri has rather taken the world by storm. You must feel rather pleased and, if not elated.
Yes, it's wonderful to see just how much people enjoy their adventures.
When you were writing it, did you have an inkling that you were onto something pretty phenomenal?
I knew it was a good idea, and that it hadn't been done before quite like this. And I was excited about the idea. I mean, as a novelist, every new book is a risk, and you're not sure whether it's going to take off or not. But I had a very good feeling about these characters.
Before we get into the details of the book and the characters and so on and so forth, a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Well, I've been dividing my time between journalism and writing books, mostly fiction, and really going from one to the other. I was a writer on The Observer for the last 14 years or so.
That's a newspaper in the UK, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was an arts writer. I was their dance correspondent.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written half a dozen books, mostly, as I said, fiction. And
I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine this has been the most successful so far.
Yeah, I think that is safe to say. I mean, there are two Killing Eve books, and a third is coming out this spring,
right? Spring
2020. So yes, between them, they've done quite well.
It seems to me that half the world has seen Killing Eve and the other half haven't. So for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about the setting, the plot, the characters.
It's the story of a young woman from Russia. She comes from Perm, which is a second-tier city in Russia. She grew up in hardship in the post-Soviet times, and she is not convicted, she is on remand for the murder of her father's killers when she is broken out of prison by an organization that recruits her as an assassin. And the series is about, she comes to the attention of Eve Polastri, who is a British Security Services officer, and really Eve gets on her tail, and the story is of their pursuit, the cat and mouse game that follows that.
We've got the book here, and so which one is Eve, which one is Villanelle?
Well, that's Sandra Oh, who plays Eve Polastri in the show, and that's Jodie Comer, Villanelle.
Both of whom are absolutely mesmerising, if I may say.
Yes, the casting was the casting was so successful is very much a factor in the success of the show overall.
So let's go back to the book. You wrote it a few years back ago. Did you have it in the back of your mind that it would make a good television series or a good movie?
Yes, I always thought that it would work well on television, and I wrote it with quite a fast pace and quite visually, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it, I mean, I think up to a degree, we all think in filmic and televisual terms when we write these days, because it's so much a part of all of our experience. But this particular story, I thought lent itself very well to television, to an extended treatment like that.
Now, there's a note on the book which says this forms the basis of the television programme. To what extent does the TV programme deviate from the book?
Well, television and fiction are so different, it would be impossible that it didn't. In a book, for example, 2 pages of narrative is maybe a second or 2 of TV time. So you need much more incident, you need much more to be going on. You can't, in a novel, you can go inside the characters' heads. On television, everything that you discover by seeing it. So you're immediately talking about 2 very, very different media. And the plot that suited the book is the same, is similar to what they used on TV, but it's not the same in all aspects. And I think of the books as occupying the same imaginative universe as the TV series, and featuring the same characters, most of the same characters, but they're complementary, they're not the same, and really it doesn't work if you have the TV series chasing the book or the book chasing the TV series. They're always going to be different, and I think as an author you have to accept that, and you have to go with it and be happy with it, and I'm very happy with the way that the series has gone.
So there you are, you published the book Killing Eve, and you think, well, this could work well on television. How did you go about getting a successful TV series?
Well, there's a strong element of luck and being in the right place at the right time. What happened was that I was first approached by Amazon to write a title, or several titles, for their TV singles platform. And this suited me because actually I was writing shorter stories than would have been suitable for a full-length novel. So I wrote this series of novellas which went up on Amazon and which people enjoyed. And that suited me in several ways, because it's great to have a book conventionally published, as this was later, but you write it and you finish it and then you wait. You know, you have a year or so minimum while the book goes through the various convolutions of being published. Obviously, with self-publishing on Amazon, it's up a week after you finish doing it. On the other hand, the difficulty that you have publishing something on self-publishing something on Amazon or any similar platform is that nobody knows that it's there, and so all the publicity is not on a publishing company. You have to do that yourself. So I made it my business to get this book read by as many people as I could persuade to do so. And
so was Killing Eve self-published first?
Initially, yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I mean, I say self-published, it wasn't quite self-published because it was commissioned by Amazon. Mm. And when the first stories went up, it was publicized by Amazon too. So, so it did have perhaps a bigger readership than it would have had if I had simply dropped it there unannounced and let it fend for itself. So it did have this support from Amazon. that program's no longer going, to the best of my knowledge, nor is Amazon's support for self-published titles. But it was nice. It was nice while it lasted. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I managed to get it in front of a TV producer who read the first couple of the stories, first one of the story, I think, and liked it and optioned the series, and things went from there.
And it was actually produced by the BBC, but not the BBC in the UK, right?
Well, it had a bit of a journey before that. It was optioned by a TV production company, and what they do is they develop the idea. They then look for a broadcaster to finance the whole thing. And Sky were interested, and then they pulled out because the commissioning editor in question left. And then BBC America came on board, and they wanted it very much, and they were happy to finance it. So BBC America are a streaming company, much like Netflix, and they saw this as one of their flagship productions, and so they bought it and they developed it, and that's where it first went out.
Now, from the point of view of turning a novel into a screenplay, into a script ready to hand over to a director and the actors, who did you collaborate with and why?
Well, when the book was first optioned, and what that means is when the production company buys the rights to exploit the text, there was a list of possible screenwriters, and one of these was an actress and screenwriter called Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and she had just produced a one-woman monologue show called Fleabag, which had appeared at the Edinburgh Festival and been very successful there. And this show came to London, and I went to see it, and Phoebe had already been sent the first of the it wasn't the book by then, it was still a series of novellas, and she had read she had read about Villanelle and Eve. She had read the first couple of stories, and she was very keen to do it. So we started talking, and we got on very well, and we saw the characters in the same way and how they would best translate from fiction to TV. And we had, I think, about 18 months to think about how this was going to happen. And it was a very happy collaboration, and we were fortunate that we had time to develop all these ideas before Phoebe then went away and wrote the pilot script, and then that was at the point that BBC America were on board, and so that was the genesis of the whole thing.
Now, of course, the casting of the main characters is crucial to the ultimate success of the series, and I think everyone is fascinated by the lead characters that you chose. How did you come to pick up Sandra and Judy Comer?
Sandra was Phoebe's idea, and Phoebe got Sandra on board, and everybody thought that she was perfect because she's an actor who performs without vanity, and she's very, very funny, and she's obviously super smart. And so she really seemed to have all the characteristics for Eve. And Jodie was one of a short list of actors who screen tested for the role with Sandra, and she was both Phoebe and I was lucky enough to be consulted about the casting, and this is by no means something that the production company had to do, but they were nice enough to ask my opinion, and both Phoebe and myself thought that Jodie was absolutely sensational. What you see on the screen today is she had the whole thing worked out and sewn up by the time of her screen test. They did the scene, the psych evaluation in the pink dress, and I mean she just did it in her own clothes, but it was straight out of the box perfect and completely demented, and we knew we had to have her.
When you were writing the book initially, you must have had a vision in your own mind of what Villanelle looked like. Did Jodie fit that?
Yes,
vision?
she fitted that perfectly. And curiously enough, Sandra was, I visualised Sandra as looking completely different and not being Canadian Korean, but being English. But in terms of character and the way that she inhabits the role, she is so completely the Eve that I imagined.
Now, the series is typified, certainly for me anyway, by the beautiful clothing, the beautiful costumes, the beautiful sets that are featured in the TV series. How did you go about your research in terms of finding the right kind of clothing, the right kind of look and feel of the series?
Well, in the books, I was go to some lengths to make it clear that Villanelle is someone who loves she loves clothes. It's one of the things that the unlimited supply of money that she earns can buy, and she dresses not for other people, not to look attractive, certainly not for men. She dresses for herself, so in a kind of very personal and quite quirky way. And of course that, living in Paris as she does, she is hiding in plain sight, and so I've, as a journalist, I've written occasionally about fashion. I went to Paris. I checked out the sort of shops that she would go to and the clothes that she would wear. So all of that is quite accurate and quite specific. And Phoebe was not greatly interested in fashion, but we both agreed that clothes were going to be very much the kind of realm in which Eve and Villanelle were going to confront each other. There's the idea that Villanelle would launch this kind of passive-aggressive assault on Eve by sending her a suitcase full of beautiful clothes that she could never have afforded on a civil servant's wage, all fitting her perfectly. That's the kind of level of the psychic war that they're waging on each other. So it was always part of it. And in that first series, where you see, I think probably the most spectacular of the fashions, there was in charge of the costume designer was a woman called Phoebe de Gay, who was brilliantly imaginative, and it's she who decided that all of these memorable and iconic looks were what Villanelle should wear, and also dressed Sandra as Eve in her quite sort of dowdy, practical, fashion-blind outfits.
I believe you had a little bit of advice from your daughter.
That's right, yes. When I was researching the costumes, I took her with me to Paris, and we would go into all the designer shops on the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré and in the Place des Victoires, and I would sort of send her in ahead, and she would go and she would try all these unbelievably expensive clothes on, and just demand that the staff kept them coming. And she was completely fearless about that. I would never have done so. You know, you go in there and you get the look from the assistants. She was fearless, and so we really picked through these garments, and we decided how to dress Villanelle.
Another aspect of the series, which and the book and the series, which struck me, is the inventive way in which you came up with different means of assassinating people. Some of them quite grisly. I mean, the one that sticks in my mind, I think, was a spike or a fountain pen in the eye.
Oh, yes, the hairpin.
Yes, the hairpin. That's right. Did you have fun thinking up grisly ways to assassinate people?
Well, it's more a question of problem solving. I mean, for that particular kill, Villanelle has to kill her target in the book in a theatre box in the full sight of thousands of people. So it has to be, she has to somehow get this weapon into the presence of her victim. And so how does she do it? But she carries it in her hair as a hair clip. And so it's often, if we're to believe that she is a very clever and resourceful assassin, then she has to solve some pretty intractable problems. And so I had a lot of fun thinking, well, you know, how is this going to happen? And it has to actually work. If it's in a book, people can go back and say, well, would that happen like that? And so all of the assassination techniques and setups would, in theory, they would work to my satisfaction. So, but it takes time. You can't just have somebody walk into the room and shoot somebody and walk out. You know, nowadays there's CCTV, there's facial recognition, there are fingerprints, there is DNA evidence, all of this kind of stuff. So, so you have to be increasingly resourceful. I mean, as spy writers, we're all being backed into a corner by all of these surveillance tools that people have now, and it's the old-fashioned James Bond techniques aren't going to work in today's surveillance world. So you have to be very, very ingenious.
As we speak, Series 3, the TV series, is in post-production. We've already seen a few stills from that, and we're all looking forward to watching that. Well, certainly I am. And you mentioned earlier in the interview, there's another book about to come out. So tell us a little bit about that.
The novel series is a trilogy. The first one is Killing Eve, codename Villanelle, Killing Eve, No Tomorrow, and this one is Killing Eve, Die For Me. This is the third one, and that's coming out in the US in the spring and in the UK in the summer.
And will that be it then?
For now, yes. I conceived the whole arc of the thing as a 3-book series, and this completes the arc.
You're not going to be like Ian Fleming and carry on 8 or 9, 10 books with the same characters, much as your audience would love you to.
I think leave them wanting more is always a good way to go. Yes, I mean, for now I'm bringing their story to a close.
Right. And the TV series, the series 3 is in post-production now. Will there be a 4 and a 5?
Well, series 4 has been commissioned.
Okay.
And so that will continue.
Excellent. Luke, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I was part of the reason for doing these interviews is to publicise people's novels, people's books, authors' novels, but I don't think in this case any more publicity is required because it's already been so successful. But by all means, let's just remind everybody, hold up the book please, it's Killing Eve.
This is the first of the
First of
the 3, yes, this is the one to start with.
Available in all airport bookshops.
I hope so.
Very good. Luke, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.